The ship landed with a soft hum on the floating platform from the sky. The Zeppelin palace looked like a mountain made of glass, shining in the red light of the alien sun. Rian stepped out of the human transport alone, wearing a simple gray suit and a calm face. He looked up at the giant doors ahead, guarded by tall creatures with silver armor and bright blue eyes. Rian had been sent as the first human envoy to meet Queen Varel. Most humans thought it was a suicide mission. The Zeppelin were known across the stars for their pride, their power, and their demand for total submission. Anyone who met the Queen was expected to kneel. Some who refused were never seen again. But Rian was not afraid. The guard said nothing as he walked past. His boots clicked softly on the smooth black floor. Giant statues of winged beasts lined the hallway. The walls were covered in glowing patterns that shifted as he moved. The Zeppelin loved beauty and power, and everything around him showed it. Rian was brought to the throne room, a place larger than any building on Earth. The ceiling stretched so high it disappeared into a glowing mist. Alien nobles stood in silence, dressed in robes that shimmered like water. They watched him with curious eyes. Some looked angry, some amused, and some simply bored. At the end of the room, Queen Varel sat on a throne of crystal and light. Her skin was smooth and silver, her eyes like stars. She wore a long robe covered in jewels, and a crown that floated above her head. When she looked at Rian, the room became even more silent. A voice echoed through the chamber. It was not loud, but it filled every corner. "Kneel," the queen said. Rian stopped walking. He stood about 10 steps away from the throne. His face showed no fear, no anger, only calm. He did not kneel. The nobles gasped. A few whispered to each other. The guards at the edge of the room tightened their grip on their weapons. But Rian remained still, hands by his side, his eyes on the queen. Varel narrowed her eyes. Her voice was colder this time. "Kneel before your queen, human." Rian took a slow breath. Then he spoke. "Why?" The room froze. No one had ever asked that question before. The queen blinked. She tilted her head slightly. "You question me?" she asked. Rian nodded once. His voice was steady. "I was told the Zeppelin are a wise people. If wisdom is your way, then I ask only for understanding. Why must I kneel?" There was a long silence. The queen looked at him for a moment. Then she rose from her throne. Her steps were graceful and smooth, and when she walked, her robe moved like liquid metal. She came down the steps and stood in front of him. She was taller than Rian, and the air around her seemed to shimmer with power. But Rian did not step back. "You are the first human to enter this chamber," she said. "You are alone. You are surrounded by my guards and nobles. You stand on a world that belongs to me, and still you ask me why you should kneel?" Rian looked into her eyes. His answer was calm. "Because kneeling without knowing why is not respect. It is fear, and I did not come here in fear." One of the nobles shouted, "He insults the queen." Others joined in. The guards stepped forward. But the queen raised her hand. Everyone stopped. She looked at Rian again. "You are bold," she said. "Some would say foolish," Rian replied, a small smile on his face. "Queen." Varel studied him for a moment longer. Then she turned and walked back to her throne. She sat down and looked at the guards. "Let him speak," she said. The chamber buzzed with whispers. This had never happened before. The queen had allowed a visitor to question her and live. Even more, she had invited him to speak. Rian stood taller. His words had opened a door. But he knew this was only the beginning. Rian stood quietly in the center of the grand chamber. The cold floor under his feet was smooth like polished stone. Round him, the alien nobles watched with sharp eyes. Some whispered behind their long sleeves, others glared, waiting for the queen to punish him. But Queen Varel did not shout. She did not command his death. She looked at Rian with interest, like a teacher watching a student who gave an unexpected answer. "You ask why you should kneel," she said from her throne. "Tell me, human, do you believe your kind is greater than mine?" Rian shook his head. His voice remained calm. "No, I don't believe one kind is greater than the other. But I do believe that respect must be given with reason. not just because someone says so. The queen leaned forward. The light above her made her crown shine brighter. So you refuse to kneel not out of pride, but because you want understanding. Yes, Rian said. I come from a world where kneeling has many meanings. Sometimes it means love, sometimes grief, and sometimes it means surrender. I need to know what it means here. A silence filled the hall again. Many nobles looked confused, some were angry. To them, kneeling before the queen was natural, like breathing. It had always been done. It was the rule. No one questioned it. Queen Varel rested her hands on her throne. Her eyes did not leave Rian's face. In our history, she began kneeling. Began long ago, during the time of the Great Wars. It was a sign of peace. When one side lost, they knelt to show they would no longer fight. Over time, it became tradition. Every guest kneels, every leader, every soldier. Every voice who enters this room must bow. Rian listened carefully. Then he asked, and what happens when someone kneels who does not agree, but only does it out of fear? The queen raised an eyebrow. They live, and we do not waste time on their questions. Rian looked around the room. His voice grew stronger. Where I come from, fear can keep people quiet for a while, but not forever. We learned that when people kneel for too long, they rise with anger. I came here not to kneel, but to stand in peace. Some nobles laughed quietly, others scowled. One older noble stepped forward and spoke in the Zevelin tongue, sharp and quick. The queen listened, then nodded. She turned back to Rian. Lord Varen says you are clever with words, but this is not your world. You have no army, no power here. Why should your voice matter in my court? Rian looked straight at her. Because truth does not need an army. The room grew still once more. Queen Varel sat back in her throne. Her fingers touched the side of her crown, which floated slightly above her silver hair. You are not like the others we have met, she said. I am only one man, Rian replied, but I carry the voice of a people who believe in choice. The queen looked at him with unreadable eyes. Then she stood again. If you will not kneel, then you must earn the right to stand. There is a way. Rian stayed silent, waiting. You will face the gauntlet of trial, she said. It is an ancient test. If you pass, I will allow you to speak freely before my council. If you fail, you will leave this world in shame. A murmur spread across the chamber. The gauntlet was known. Even among distant worlds, few passed it, many tried, and many were never seen again. Rian nodded once. I accept. The queen raised her hand, and the great doors of the chamber opened. A group of guards entered, dressed in dark armor with glowing symbols. One of them stepped forward and handed Rian a small silver band. Place this on your arm. The guard said. Rian did. The band locked in place and gave a quiet hum. A light blinked on its surface. It will track your progress, the queen said, and it will show us your choices. Rian looked at her once more. Will I be alone in this trial? You will face it as you are now, she replied, with your mind, with your heart, with your courage. She paused. Many have tried to impress me with strength. Few have dared to speak like you. Let us see what strength truly means to your people. Rian turned and followed the guards as they led him through a side door. Down into the deep halls beneath the palace, the nobles whispered again. Some in doubt, others in wonder. Queen Varel remained seated on her throne, her eyes fixed on the place where Rian had stood. For the first time in many years, she felt something new in her court. Not fear, not silence, but curiosity and perhaps just a little hope. Rian walked through a dark tunnel under the Zevelin Palace. The walls were smooth and cold. The lights above him flickered with a soft blue glow. Behind him, the heavy door of the throne room closed with a deep sound. Ahead, the gauntlet of trial waited. The guards said nothing. They simply walked beside him, leading him to the chamber where the test would begin. Rian knew the gauntlet was not just a physical challenge. It was a test of the mind, of choice, and of will. Many who faced it tried to fight their way through. Most failed. After a long walk, the guards stopped. A wide metal door stood before them. Strange marks were carved into its surface. The guards pressed a panel. The door opened slowly, revealing a large, round room with glowing walls. At the center stood a tall figure, not fully human, not fully machine. "This is the keeper," the guard said. "He will explain the rules. We will not enter." Rian stepped into the room. The door closed behind him. The keeper turned to face him. Its body was silver and gold, with arms like smooth wires and a face that shifted shape as it spoke. "Welcome, Rian of Earth," the keeper said in a gentle voice. "You are now inside the gauntlet of trial. You will face 3 tests. You may not turn back. You may not ask for help. But you may think, speak, and act as you choose." Rian gave a short nod. "I understand." The floor lit up beneath him, and a new door opened ahead. The first test, the maze of Gravitarians, stepped into a maze that looked like it was built from floating platforms. The path twisted in the air, with no clear direction. Some walls were on the floor, others on the ceiling or sideways. As soon as he took his first step, gravity shifted. He fell forward but landed on a wall that now became the floor. He kept moving, his eyes sharp, his mind focused. Each step changed the direction of gravity. Left became down, up became forward. Most would get lost or panic, but Rian stayed calm. He remembered a simple rule: follow the path of light. Faint glowing lines ran across the walls. He touched each one, letting it guide him. After many turns and strange jumps, he reached the final door. He touched the panel, and it opened. The keeper's voice came again. "You have passed the first test, not through force, but thought. Well done." The second test, the mind beast's next room, was dark and quiet. Rian stepped in, and the door closed behind him. A slow, cold wind brushed his face. Then he heard something breathing. A large shape moved in the shadows. From the darkness came a creature with long arms and no eyes. Its skin was black and smooth like stone. Rian felt something push into his mind, like fingers trying to open a locked box. The beast was a telepath. It did not speak with words. Instead, it showed him images, memories from his past. The day his brother died in a space crash. The night he left Earth. The fear he felt before landing on the alien world. The beast wanted to break him using his own pain. But Rian didn't fight the memories. He let them come. He accepted the pain, but did not let it control him. He spoke out loud. Though the beast could hear his thoughts, "These are my memories. They are part of me, but they do not rule me." The creature stopped moving. It tilted its head, confused. It was used to fear. It was used to control. But Rian showed it calm. He showed its strength without anger. The beast stepped back, then slowly disappeared into the shadows. A door opened. "You have passed the second test," said the keeper. "You faced your fear with peace, not power." The third test, the choices. Final room was simple. A single table stood in the center. On it were 2 objects, a golden key and a small black cube. The keeper appeared again. "This is the last test," it said. "The key opens the path to the Queen's Council. You may take it and walk through the door. But the cube contains the life of a creature trapped inside this gauntlet. A beast left here many years ago. If you choose the cube, you must give up the key and stay until the creature is free." Rian looked at both objects. The choice was clear. Take the key, and he would win. Take the cube, and he would delay his mission to help another. He picked up the cube. "Let the creature go," he said. "No life should be forgotten here." The keeper was silent. Then it spoke softly. "Your choice is noted." The cube disappeared in a soft flash of light. A low sound came from far away. Somewhere deep in the gauntlet, a gate opened. The trapped beast was free. The wall ahead of Rian opened to reveal a new path. The keeper spoke once more. "You have passed all 3 tests, not by strength, not by fear, but by mind, heart, and choice. You may return to the Queen." Rian walked forward. The halls behind him faded. The light around him grew warm. When he reached the surface, the guards were waiting. Without a word, they led him back to the throne room. The great doors opened once more. The nobles turned to look. Queen Varel stood at the center of the room, waiting. Rian stepped forward. He was no longer just a guest. He was a voice the queen had chosen to hear. The throne room was quiet when Rian returned. He walked in with steady steps, wearing the same gray suit, but his face showed something new: experience, understanding, and calm strength. Behind him, the heavy doors closed. All eyes were on him. Queen Varel stood beside her throne. Her tall figure was still, her silver eyes focused on Rian. The nobles, guards, and scholars filled the wide hall. Some had doubted he would survive. Some had expected him to come crawling. But he walked in tall, with no fear and no shame. The queen raised her hand. Her voice echoed through the chamber. Rian of Earth has passed the gauntlet. He chose not force but reason, not pride but purpose. As promised, he may now speak before the council of elders. A circle of nobles stepped forward and stood in a half-ring behind the queen. They were the oldest minds in the Zevelin Empire, each known for guiding laws, battles, and history. They did not smile. They watched Rian with cold curiosity. Rian stepped to the center of the hall. A single round platform lifted him slightly above the ground. He turned slowly to face them all. He took a breath and began. I did not come to bow. I did not come to break your rules or insult your ways. I came to understand. He paused, letting the silence hold. In my world, we learn that power without reason brings fear, and fear grows quietly until it becomes fire. I did not ask you to change your ways because they are different. I ask you to question what has never been questioned. One of the elder nobles stepped forward. His skin was deep blue, and lines of glowing ink ran down his arms. His voice was low. You say fear grows, but fear keeps order. It keeps chaos outside these walls. Rian nodded respectfully. Yes, fear can bring order for a time, but it cannot build trust. It cannot grow friendship. You rule many worlds, but are those worlds loyal, or are they only quiet because they are afraid to speak? Another noble, a tall female with gold markings, spoke. You are brave, human, but your people are still young in the stars. What gives your words value here? Rian turned to her with steady eyes. We may be young, but we are not blind. Our history is full of mistakes. We built empires, and we watched them fall. Not because we were weak, but because we forgot to listen. We forced others to kneel, and they rose one day with fists. There was a stir among the nobles. His words were not shouted. They were not full of pride, but they hit deep. Queen Varel watched closely. Her eyes did not blink. Rian walked to the edge of the platform. I did not kneel because I feared no one. I did not kneel because I believed kneeling should be a gift, not a demand. When I bow my head, it must come from respect, not fear. The room was silent. You are a great people, Rian continued. Your empire has lasted for thousands of years. But now, more species are rising. They do not want war. They want voice. If the Zevelin keep asking for silence, they may one day hear a roar instead. Whispers moved through the hall like wind in tall grass. Some nobles looked down. Others frowned. A few nodded slowly. Queen Varel stepped forward and spoke. You risk much, human. You speak truths many have hidden under silence. What is it that you wish from us? Rian turned to her, his voice clear. I wish not for control, not for power, not for gifts. I wish for a future where peace is not made through fear, but through understanding. Let humans and Zevelin work as equals, not ruler and subject. Let kneeling be a choice, not a law. The queen was quiet. The council whispered. Some wanted to speak out. Others seemed unsure. Then a young noble, barely old enough to wear the council robe, stepped forward. I was taught to never question tradition, he said. But today, I saw someone face the gauntlet without raising a blade. I saw a man walk into this hall with truth in his voice, and I asked myself now, what if truth is more powerful than silence? His words hung in the air. Then another noble stepped forward, then another. One by one, they began to speak, not loudly, but clearly. Not all agreed, but something had changed. A door had opened in their minds. Rian stood still, letting them speak. He had not come to win by argument. He had come to light a spark, and now that spark was catching fire. Queen Varel raised her hand. and the voices stopped. She looked at Rian, long and deep. You did not kneel, she said, and yet you were heard. You stood tall, but did not strike. You came in peace, and you leave us with questions. She paused. That is rare. Rian gave a small bow, not with his knee, but with his head. A gesture of respect, not surrender. The queen nodded. You may stay as guest of the court. You may speak more. But know this, human, you have shaken walls. That stood for centuries. Rian smiled gently. Sometimes. Your strongest walls are the ones that need the first crack. The sky above the Zevlin Palace turned deep purple as evening settled. The stars began to appear, shining through the glass roof of the queen's private chamber. Queen Varel stood near a wide window, her hands behind her back, watching the night arrive. The planet was quiet, but her thoughts were not. She remembered Rian's words from the council chamber. She had ruled for many years, and in all that time, no one had spoken to her like he did. Most bent the knee before speaking. Most gave praise before giving truth. But this human had stood before her, calm and clear, asking only one thing, understanding. A soft sound came from the door. Her guard entered and bowed. Your Majesty, he said, the human requests an audience. Send him in. She replied without turning. Moments later, Rian stepped into the room. He walked with respect but still stood tall. There was no fear in his face, only quiet focus. You wish to speak? The queen asked. Yes, Rian replied. Not as a leader, just as a man. She turned to him. Her silver eyes met his. Then speak. Rian stepped forward slowly. I want to understand. I want to know what made you the ruler you are. What made you demand that all must kneel? The queen did not answer right away. She walked to a nearby table and poured 2 cups of a warm, golden drink. She handed one to Rian. In our history, she said, we nearly destroyed ourselves. The Zevlin people were once divided. Many voices, many tribes, always fighting. Then one leader brought peace by making a single rule, unity through respect, and respect through submission. Rian listened closely. When my mother became queen, Varel continued, she followed that same rule, as did I. It worked for centuries. There was no war, no rebellion, no chaos, only order. Rian nodded slowly. But does peace without choice truly last forever? The queen raised her eyes. That is the question your presence has forced me to face. Silence filled the room for a moment. Outside, the stars continued to shine. You showed them something different, she said. Not power by force, but power by honesty. That is rare. I didn't come to show power, Rian said. I came to start a conversation. Varel gave a small smile. And you have. But not all are pleased by it. She walked toward the window again and pointed below, in the distance. Lights moved across the palace grounds. Soldiers were training, their armor glowing in the dark. There are some, she said, who believe I have grown weak, that your words have made me soft. They whisper that I should have crushed you the moment you stood. Rian looked out with her. Change is always feared by those who benefit from silence, he said. The queen turned her gaze to him once more. You are right, she said. But even I do not rule without pressure. There are voices among my council who now doubt me. They say the old way kept us strong, that your ideas are dangerous. Rian set his cup down gently. Do you believe that? Varel walked slowly to her throne, but did not sit. I don't know, she admitted. All my life, I believed respect came from control, that peace came from order. But then you walked in alone, unarmed, and made a room full of nobles listen. You passed the gauntlet not by winning battles, but by showing wisdom and mercy. She paused. That makes me question what I once thought was unshakable. A deep voice spoke from the shadows. Then you are no longer fit to rule. Rian turned fast. A tall Zevlin noble stepped out from behind a pillar. His armor was dark, his eyes cold. More soldiers appeared behind him, weapons in hand. Varel stood tall. Lord Kale, she said, you enter my chamber without call. Kale did not bow. You have let the human poison our minds. You speak of mercy and peace. While the council begins to divide, you have made us weak. You forget yourself, the queen warned. Kale stepped closer. I do what you should have done. I protect the Empire. He raised his hand, seized them. The guards moved forward. Rian acted fast. He pulled a small sphere from his belt, one of Earth's defense tools. It released a blinding flash of light, the room filled with a sharp white glow. The guards stumbled, covering their eyes. Queen Varel did not waste the moment. She stepped beside Rian and pressed a hidden panel on the wall. A door slid open. This way, she said. They ran through the narrow hallway. Behind them, shouts echoed. Rian followed the queen down steps and through twisting tunnels. This part of the palace is unknown to most, she said, built for escape in times of war. They stopped in a small chamber filled with old maps and machines. I never thought I'd need this again, she said quietly. Rian looked at her. You were right. Some walls must be shaken before they fall. She turned to him, eyes steady. Then we will face this together, not as ruler and subject but as equals. The quiet halls of the Zevlin Palace were suddenly filled with noise. The calm of night shattered by the sound of heavy boots and shouting soldiers. Rian and Queen Varel stood at the heart of the palace, surrounded by loyal guards. Outside, the rebels moved fast. Lord Kale had gathered those who feared change. They believed the old ways were the only path to power and survival. They did not want peace built on choice. They wanted submission. The palace's great glass walls shook as explosions rocked the outer grounds. The red sky glowed with fire. This is no ordinary rebellion, Varel said. Her voice steady but heavy. They want to take back control by force. Rian looked around. The queen's loyal guards readied their weapons, energy rifles, and sharp blades that gleamed even in low light. We must protect you, Rian said. Varel shook her head. No, I am not just your ruler now. I stand with you all. If this palace burns, it burns for the truth we fight for. The sound of a massive door crashing open echoed through the halls. Soldiers loyal to Kale poured in. Rian stepped forward. His mind raced. Earth had taught him many things: how to stay calm in chaos, how to use what was around him to survive. He reached into the suit and pulled out a small device, a compact drone. He pressed a button. The drone rose silently, its tiny camera sending images back to his wrist screen. Keep the queen safe, he ordered the guards. The guards nodded and spread out, creating a protective circle around Varel. Rian's drone flew ahead, scouting the halls. It spotted the rebels moving through the corridors, trying to reach the throne room. Rian thought quickly. He sent a signal to the palace's defense system. Ancient but powerful, it was designed to protect the queen at all costs. Suddenly, the walls around them lit up with bright energy shields. The rebels were stopped at every turn. Kale shouted orders, but his men could not break through. The drone found an old control room and sent the map back to Rian. Using the controls, Rian activated traps and defense turrets, turning the palace into a fortress. The battle grew fierce. Sounds of fighting echoed everywhere, clashes of weapons, shouts, and the hum of energy blasts. Amid the chaos, Varel fought beside her guards. Her silver eyes shone with determination. She was not just a ruler but a warrior. Rian stayed close. He used his quick thinking and human creativity to outsmart the rebels. At one point, a group of rebels broke through the defenses and charged toward the throne room. Rian and a guard blocked their path. With no time to lose, Rian used a device that emitted a powerful pulse, knocking the attackers off their feet. The rebels were surprised. They had expected a simple human diplomat, not a clever fighter. After hours of battle, the rebels began to lose ground. Many were captured or fled. Kale himself tried to escape, but was caught by a queen's guard. The palace was safe for now, but the cost was high. Parts of the great building were damaged. The beautiful glass walls were cracked, and the halls were filled with smoke. Varel looked at the destruction with a heavy heart. This war is not over, she said softly. But tonight, we show that standing together is stronger than fear. Rian nodded. We fought with more than weapons, he said. We fought with courage and truth. Outside, dawn began to break. The sky turned soft blue. The fires were dying. Inside the palace, quiet returned. But the fight for change had only just begun. The sun rose slowly over the Zevlin Empire. Light spilled through the broken glass of the palace, casting colorful patterns on the cracked floors. The battle was over, but the air was heavy with change. Queen Varel stood in the great hall, looking out at the nobles and soldiers gathered before her. Their faces showed tension, doubt, and curiosity. This was not a day for celebration, but for decision. Rion stood beside her, calm and steady. He had become more than a visitor. He was a symbol of a new way of respect without fear, of strength without force. The queen cleared her throat. Her voice echoed clearly, "People of Zevlin, we stand at a crossroads. For centuries, our empire has ruled through order and control. We have asked all who enter to kneel, to show respect through submission. But today, that tradition has been questioned." She looked at the crowd. Many fear change. They see it as weakness. But I have learned that true strength comes not from forcing others down, but from standing with them. There was a long silence. Then, one by one, nobles and soldiers began to rise, not to kneel, but to stand. A young soldier, the same who had spoken in the council, stepped forward. "We have lived in the shadow of fear for too long," he said. "Today, we choose to stand not because we are forced, but because we believe in the future the queen speaks of." Others nodded and stood with him. The hall filled with quiet courage. The old laws of submission were breaking. Queen Varel turned to Rion and smiled. "Your courage has changed us all," she said. Rion smiled back. "Your courage opened the door." The queen then spoke of a new treaty, one that would bring peace between humans and Zevlin. It would be based on equality, respect, and cooperation. Rion was invited to speak again, this time not as a guest, but as an ally. He spoke of hope, of friendship, and of building a future together. The crowd listened, not as subjects, but as partners. Days passed, and the palace began to heal. Workers repaired the walls and cleaned the halls. But the greatest work was happening inside the hearts of the people. Rion prepared to leave. His mission was done, but the friendship he had built would last. At the landing platform, Queen Varel stood with him. "Will you return?" she asked. "Perhaps," Rion replied. "But for now, this is just the beginning." He boarded his ship, waving goodbye. As the ship lifted, he looked back at the palace. The people were no longer kneeling, but standing tall. He smiled. In the stars, a new story was beginning.